October 1962. The world was closer to nuclear war than at any moment in human history. American spy planes had just photographed Soviet nuclear missile sites in Cuba. In Washington, panic moved behind closed doors. The Central Intelligence Agency, the White House, and the Pentagon were racing against the clock. But buried deep inside classified intelligence files was a warning, a memo few people ever saw. It came from a CIA analyst working the Soviet desk. The document questioned a critical assumption, that the nuclear missiles in Cuba were not yet operational. The analyst warned that Soviet forces might already have the authority and the capability to launch. If that assessment was correct, any American airstrike could trigger immediate nuclear retaliation. President John F. Kennedy and his crisis team, known as the Executive Committee, were debating exactly that option: bomb the missile sites before they became active. But inside the intelligence bureaucracy, the memo never reached the top of the decision chain in time. Historians would later learn that several intelligence warnings during the crisis were delayed, buried in competing reports, or lost in the overwhelming flood of classified information. Meanwhile, on the island of Cuba, Soviet commander Isa Pliyev was secretly in charge of tactical nuclear weapons, short-range missiles powerful enough to destroy an invading American force. And shockingly, Moscow had already granted him conditional launch authority. American leaders did not know this. If the United States had launched the airstrike many officials were demanding, Soviet troops on the ground might have responded with nuclear weapons. U.S. invasion forces, nuclear retaliation, escalation between Washington and Moscow, a chain reaction that could have drawn the superpowers into full nuclear war. During the standoff, U.S. forces moved to DEFCON 2, the highest alert level ever reached in American history. Soviet submarines carrying nuclear torpedoes were already shattered by the U.S. Navy. The margin between survival and catastrophe was razor thin. Only years later, after Cold War archives began to open, did historians realize how dangerously incomplete the intelligence picture had been. Warnings existed, questions had been raised, but in the chaos of October 1962, some signals simply never reached the people who needed them most. In the end, the crisis ended through secret negotiations. Soviet missiles left Cuba, and American missiles quietly disappeared from Turkey. The world stepped back from the brink. But the forgotten memo remains a haunting reminder of something far more unsettling. Sometimes, history doesn't turn on grand speeches or dramatic battles. Sometimes, the fate of millions hangs on a single piece of paper that no one reads in time.